Dementia is the loss of brain function. Alzheimer's disease is the most common form of dementia, which gradually gets worse over time, disabling the person and eventually leading to death. It affects memory, cognitive performance, and behavior.
Almost 3 years ago.
That's right.
Yeah. What made you even go to a doctor? And
I had an anger problem. My typical mild self turned into an ogre. My daughter had come to live with her two kids with us. And it turned out that I just couldn't cope with the kids. I wasn't prepared to raise kids again, so it was natural for me to be angry. But my anger was out of control. I would really have spells of anger. And then the other thing that happened was that I was having spells, very briefly, of driving down a familiar street and suddenly being unable to remember where I was. I couldn't remember whether I was supposed to turn at the next street or go ahead or anything. It was just like I had drifted off the earth. I was sitting in space and lost. Then I'd recover and I'd go on. But this happened many times. And
in this interview, this man describes his mood swings and his loss of sense of location, two early signs of Alzheimer's. Though the disease affects everyone differently, some common symptoms are uniform. Language, memory, perception, judgment, and cognitive skills are all affected. Alzheimer's is unique in its progression of cognitive degradation. Alzheimer's disease is characterized by the elevated presence of protein fragments in the brain, known as plaques and tangles. These parts are normally healthy parts of proteins within your brain cells, but through deterioration, they congregate together and begin to destroy other cells throughout the brain.
The disease affects the spine and brain, starting in the hippocampus before spreading to the cerebrum. The physiological characteristics of Alzheimer's are shrinking of the cerebral cortex, severely enlarged ventricles, and shrinking of the hippocampus.
Early symptoms include getting lost on familiar routes, simple language problems, flat mood, misplacing items, etc.
Late symptoms include change in sleep patterns, increased agitation and depression, difficulty with tasks, forgetting details about current events, and withdrawal from social contact. Age is the greatest known risk factor for Alzheimer's disease. Most individuals with the disease are age 65 or older. The likelihood of developing Alzheimer's doubles about every 5 years after age 65. After age 85, the risk reaches nearly 50%. Family history of Alzheimer's disease is a significant risk factor. Those with family members who developed Alzheimer's disease are at a greater risk than others. The more incidences in family history, the greater the risk. There is a genetic explanation for this.
There are risk genes that increase one's chances of developing Alzheimer's disease. The strongest link is the APOE4 gene. Those with this form of the gene are at greater risk than those with other forms, for example the APOE2 or E3.
The evidence for these risk factors is varied. The hereditary links are very strong, while factors like trauma are relatively weak. Most of the research and subsequent knowledge around Alzheimer's disease has focused on the genetic risk factor.
Alzheimer's cannot be cured. One of the most difficult aspects of the disease is the toll it takes on the primary caregiver, who is in most cases a family member. Usually the spouse, sibling, or children takes this role and has to deal with the progression of the disease and its effect on the relationship.
The most promising intervention is good overall health. A healthy body has a healthy heart. A healthy heart means a healthy brain.
Woo!